Good day, everyone. Okay, so we are now on the next lesson for the topic subject assessment in Learning 1. So our topic for today is about the principles of high quality assessment for the subject assessment in learning. So it is important that we assure the quality not only of the curriculum, the instruction, the technologies, the materials, the teaching strategies, but also we need to establish and assure the quality of the assessments we will use in our classroom. So a famous philosopher said that the first precept was never to accept a thing as true until I knew it is such without a single doubt. This is according to René Descartes. So according to him, we should not easily, directly, immediately accept things to be true. That means we need to evaluate, criticize, okay, analyze, check, and measure its quality before we can say na it is good, it is valid, it is reliable. So same thing with assessment. So it does not mean that all the tests we make are already good enough. It is in gold standard. So assessment should also be revised until we can come up with something that is of high quality. So as you take this subject, you will obtain the assessment literacy. So what is assessment literacy? Assessment literacy involves understanding how assessments are made, what types of assessments answer what questions, and how the data from assessments can be used to help teachers, students, parents, and other stakeholders make decisions about teaching and learning. So the instructional decisions we make will be based on assessment results. Assessment designers, curriculum makers, educational experts will use these qualities, these principles in order to establish and attain a high quality assessment. And in my presentation, I will show to you the 12 principles to establish a high quality assessment. Okay? So these are the 12 principles. First, clarity of learning targets. Second, appropriateness of assessment methods. Third, balance. Fourth, validity. Fifth, reliability. Sixth, fairness. Seventh, communication. Eighth, positive consequences. 9, authenticity. 10, practicality and efficiency. 11, assessment is a continuous process. And 12, ethics in assessment. So we will discuss this one by one. Let's start with the clarity of learning targets. So this means that teaching emphasis should parallel testing emphasis. So this means what you teach should be assessed. So clarity of learning targets means that assessment can be made precise. That means assessment should be accurate. It should be free of errors. And that means it should be dependable. Only what are to be achieved are clearly stated and feasible. So that means that the learning outcome you have defined should be assessed. So performances, projects, assignments, quizzes that are not aligned to the learning outcomes should not be given to the students. The learning targets involving knowledge or the cognitive domain, including reasoning, the psychomotor skills, the products and effects, need to be stated in behavioral terms which denote something which can be observed through the behavior of the student. So the 3 levels of the cognitive domain should be assessed. And the learning outcomes should be clearly stated following the elements of SMART. Okay, so the learning outcomes should follow the SMART characteristics. So what do we mean by SMART? S for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable or achievable, R for realistic, and T for time-bounded. So that is how we will obtain the clarity of the learning targets. So the learning targets are very important according to the systematic approach of teaching because it will guide the teacher on what theory, teaching strategy, teaching method, learning styles that the students will experience. Not only that, the clarity of learning targets will also guide on what assessment technique or method will be used by the teacher. So again, this is the very first and important step in the instructional process. You need to establish a clear learning target or clear learning outcomes. So assessment should be clearly stated and specified and centered on what is truly important. Okay, so we only have limited time, and so teachers should carefully choose the learning outcomes that she wants to develop by the students and what assessment she will make appropriate to the learning methods. So supposing these are the learning targets. We have learning area for knowledge, reasoning, skills, products, and effects. So knowledge and reasoning is captured by the cognitive domain. Okay, so this pertains to the mental processes, meaning knowledge and reasoning. While skills, products, or skills, performances, and products are captured in the psychomotor domain. So it will use the physical, mental, and physical abilities of the students. Affects, this is captured in the affective domain of the students, their ability to use their social and emotional characteristics. So knowledge means students' mastery of the content. Okay, this involves the skill in remembering, understanding. Reasoning is the ability of the students to use that knowledge. Okay, so according to one philosopher, having a good mind is good, but using that good mind well is something better. Okay, it's not about what you learn, but it is about how you use your learnings. So skills is the student's ability to demonstrate what they have learned. So this means you will apply your knowledge and your reasoning, you will demonstrate it, you will apply it. So that's what we meant by skills or performance. Another one is product. So here, you will test the student's ability to create a product, to create a project, okay? To create a story, to create a problem, okay? Affects, this is the ability of the students to use emotional and social skills, values and characters, their personality. In number 2, so this is the second principle in establishing a high quality assessment. Appropriateness of assessment methods. Assessment should utilize assessment methods suitable or appropriate for a learning target. So there are different assessment methods. And in selecting such assessment method, it should be first and foremost appropriate to the learning target. Okay? So for example, if you want to assess the ability of the students in dancing, therefore, you will use an assessment appropriate for it, which is performance test. And you will not use multiple choice or essay, because if you use multiple choice and essay, you will not assess the true dancing skill of the students. So the second principle, your assessment method should be appropriate to the learning outcome that you want to test. So here are the different assessment methods. We have objective supply. So objective supply means objective, there is one answer or two answers or more answers, correct answers. So that's what we meant by objective. So the opposite of objective is subjective. Okay, like essay, wherein students can freely express their ideas. So that is subjective type. Objective supply means the students will supply the answer. Okay, at Osborne. Objective supply means the students will supply the answer. Example, identification, fill in the blanks, enumeration. Okay, labeling, listing. So example na siya sa objective supply type. It will only assess knowledge of the students, their ability to recall information. Next is objective select, meaning students have options, choices, okay, and they will select or choose the correct answer. Example, multiple choice, true or false, and matching type. So those type of test will also test knowledge. Essay will test the reasoning skills of the students and their ability to organize ideas. So next is performance-based. So performance-based assessments is used to measure the skills of the students, like dancing skills, okay, poetry, spoken poetry, okay, problem-solving skills. Another thing, we also have product-based, or it is still under performance-based, like for example, producing a cake, baking a cake. So the cake is the product, and you will assess how delicious the cake is. Next is oral question. So oral questioning is a good assessment method to test the knowledge and reasoning skills of the students. And if you want also to have to assess the knowledge and skills of the students, you can also use observation. So this means you will observe how frequent the student answers the questions, katong mga students na participative kayo, involved kayo sa mga activities, mo share sa ilang idea or thoughts, mo raise sa ilang hands. You will also make observations sa students na katong sige absent, okay, sige ka late, or students who are not interested to join the class, or not interested to listen, or fail to answer the questions. So their behavior, their responses, are they motivated? Are they enjoying the lesson? So you can use observation. Another one is self-report, like diaries, journal, okay? You can also use that one. Assessment methods can be in these forms. A, it could be written response instrument. So these are paper pencil test. Examples, objective test. Okay, objective test is appropriate for assessing the various levels of hierarchy of educational objectives like the cognitive domain. So if you want to assess the cognitive domain of the students, you can use objective test. Sa mga examples, objective test, kanang na mga correct answer or answers ba, na specific answer or answers. Multiple choice, matching type, fill in the blanks, identification, enumeration. Okay? Essays can test the students' grasp of higher level cognition skills like their ability to write an essay or to organize their thoughts, defend a situation. Checklist. So you can also use this one. It is a list of several characteristics or activities presented to subjects of study where they will analyze and place a mark opposite to the characteristics. So for example, you are tasked to check an item. So for example, in math, the students will make a self-assessment. They will check some items like I can add 2 digits. For example, 22 plus 36. So, nga na. Ilahang i-check, ilahang kaugalingon nga performance. It can be done by the student themselves or by the teacher. So, for example, mag-observe si teacher sa performance sa estudyante, na lang siya checklist. So, aside from objective test, we also have product rating scales. So, unlike with the objective test, this one, or kaning written response type. So again, written response instruments are paper pencil test. Okay? Mga traditional assessment. Then we also have authentic assessment like product rating scale. So it is good. You can use this if you want to assess the project of the students. So projects like book reports, maps, charts, diagrams, notebook, creative endeavors, mga videos, mga demonstration, mga diorama, story, poem. So it needs to be developed to assess various products over the years. Okay? So aside from written test, product test, nasa tayo performance test. So unlike with the product, you rate the students' final output. Okay? Output or final product. So for the performance test, you are rating the students while they are performing a certain task. Okay, so process ni siya. While they are performing, you are checking their skills. So consists of a list of behaviors that make up a certain type of performance. And it is used to determine whether or not an individual behaves in a certain way when asked to complete a particular task. So here, students should demonstrate their skill in performing a certain task, including not only the correct way of performing the task, but also their behavior. Imuha sad nang obserbaran. For example, sakto iyahang pag-perform, pero mura siya guway gana or dili interested. So imuha nang i-evaluate para makorek ang performance sa students. Next is oral questioning. So here, we will assess the students' communication skills. So here, we can assess the stock knowledge or reasoning skills of the students, or the ability to communicate or express their ideas, including grammar and quality of idea, including fluency. Another is observation and self-reports. So it is a useful supplementary method when used in conjunction with oral questioning and performance tests. So you can make an observation and you might also ask the students at the same time. So the third principle of high-quality assessment, aside sa number 1, clarity of focus, second, appropriateness of assessment method, third is, we call this as balance. So assessment methods should be able to assess all domains of learning and hierarchy of objectives. So this means we should not only emphasize the cognitive domain, we should also develop the psychomotor and the affective domain. So here are the 3 domains of learning. We have the cognitive learning, psychomotor learning, and affective learning. There should be balance among the 3 because in the OBE, in today's generation, we need to develop our students holistically. So we will not only focus on the cognitive domain, we should also give them activities to develop their psychomotor and affective learning. Also, in cognitive domain, we should not only stick in one level. So dili pwede remembering ra. Dapat students need to progress up to creating. Same with psychomotor, students should not only imitate actions or behaviors or performance, they should also create their own actions with following mga principles. Next, levels of affective learning. So students should not only learn to listen, they should also need to respond. They also need to value and make that values part of their character. Fifth is validity. Okay, this is the among the 12 principles, this is the most important principle. We call it as validity, because validity will capture every principle man. So validity, it means that assessment should measure what it intends to measure. So for example, if you are discussing about remembering, if you want your students to recall the parts of the computer, then your assessment should only be about recalling the parts of the computer. Kaya if mahitabo nga naghisgot na ka nga functions of the computer nga wala pa na nimo na discuss, then that is not valid. Okay? So you need to only measure what you have taught to your students. So kung unsa imuhang di-discuss, dapat maora sa ang imuhang i-test. Okay? So for example, a teacher would discuss chapter 1, 2, and 3 and told the students niya that would be the coverage of the test. Then kana siya kanang mga items dira sa kana nga test dapat would be composed of the chapters 1 2, 3. Dili pwede ma-appeal si chapter 4. Okay? Okay, it will invalidate the test. Dapat kung unsay mong i-discuss mo ra sa dang imuhang i-test. Walang labis, walang kulang. So di pwede malapas, di pwede magpuwang. So for example, moingon si ma'am nga chapter 1, 2, and 3 ang i-discuss. Then ang nanggawas chapter 1 ra. So ang mga students pertingtuon sa 1, 2, 3 niya, chapter 1 ra ang i-discuss. So dili na siya valid. And dapat na po'y balance. Dili kay puros daghan kay chapter 1 or gamay ra chapter 3. So kana, it will also affect validity. So let's start. There are different types of validity. let's start with content validity. So, content validity refers to the content and format of the instrument. Okay, so as I discussed a while ago, the content should be valid. The content of the test should be valid. So what was discussed should be measured, as well as the format, okay, or the type of test being used. The content and format must be consistent with the definition of the learning outcome to be measured. So it should be appropriate. The test item should be target the learning outcomes to be measured. So content validity evaluates how well an instrument, when I say instrument, test, okay? Well, an instrument or a test covers all relevant parts of the construct it aims to measure. So that means you need to have a representative topics for each chapter. So may good si ma'am na chapter 1, 2, 3 ang i-test. So that means there should be enough representation sa chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Some criteria for judging content validity are given as follows. Okay, pause na to kay Morg na yung message. Okay, so some criteria for judging content validity are as follows. So this will be our guide as we create the test. First, do the test contents represent the learning outcomes? So if kana nga item or if kana nga question, wala siya ni contribute sa learning outcome, then do not include it in the test. So focus ka sa katong learning outcome. So mo ni ang common yung mga mistakes sa if whenever I check the test. That is also the reason why ato ang previous activities. By the way, makakita mo sa kong slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the reason why in the previous activity, I ask you to formulate learning outcomes for cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domain. Kay kadto siya mo atong basis on constructing the test. So this means dili data magpatakta og himo og test. Okay? Na di ta pwede nga maghimo lag question kutob sa ato ang mahuna-hunaan, wrong na siya. Dapat, when we create test questions, it should target or parallel or anchored to the learning outcomes. Okay, if di siya anchored or dili siya nakasubay sa kadtong learning outcome, then the test will not be valid. Next, how adequately does the sample of items or questions represent the content to be assessed? So again, your question should not be short. So dili pwede mag-major exam, summative test ka, dayon gamay ra kang question, 5 ra ka question, then mo na to yung major exam. Unless if it is math. Okay, kay kung math, mo take man, require man na siya og taas-taas nga time. So, even sa math gani, dapat ka nang naapod siya remembering, understanding, applying, and to creating. So, we need to make sure na your test is not too long and not too short. It should be enough or adequate. So, dili pwede nga magdaghan sa chapter 1, gamay sa chapter 3, di pwede daghan sa chapter 3, gamay sa chapter 1. Okay? So it should be adequate. And how to know how to establish adequacy sa ato ang test? Maghimo tag table of specification, which will be our next topic next week. So next, are the items free from irrelevant factors? Okay, so katong mga useless na mga statements, ayaw na siya i-appeal. The students have adequate experience with the type of task posed by the item. So, you need to make sure na ang kanang imuhang gi-question diha, ilahan na nang nahibaw-an nahikuan or imuha na discuss. Okay, if wala nimo na discuss, then don't include it in the test. Let's have the examples. For example, sa driving, acquiring a driver's license. Okay, so in acquiring the driver's license, you need to pass the TDC and PDC. So unsa maning TDC? Theoretical Driving Certificate. So you will be taught with the different rules. So muna siyang mga paper and pencil test. Okay? So kung magkuha mo lisensya, mag-take mo test, the paper pencil test, mag-shade mo dito or encircle. Then apod tay practical driving certificate. So makuha na nimo if makapasar sad ka sa practice test sa kanang ikaw na gyud ang mag-drive. So the exam would have high content validity if the questions in that exam cover every possible topic in the course related to traffic rules. So taas na siya validity, highly valid na ang kana nga exam if it only talks about traffic rules. Kung unsay gi-discuss, yung unsay gi-seminar. At the same time, it should also exclude all other questions that are relevant for the driver's license. So dili niya apilon tong mga topics that are irrelevant. Okay, irrelevant for the driver's license. Another type of validity is face validity. Okay. Face validity refers to the outward appearance of the test. Okay, iyang hitsura. The test is said to have a face validity if it looks like or appears like it is going to measure what it is supposed to measure. Okay, so tanaw nimo ba imong scan, you need to read the test first. So you need to read the test first. Tanaw nimo murag okay na ni siya. Na-ask na nako ang questions nga gusto na akong i-ask sa mga students. Also, unsa pa may makakuha ning face validity. For example, na ay mga dili maklaro nga part, unclear area sa test paper, kanang mga hanap, okay? Kanang mga napiko, dili maklaro. It will affect face validity pod. Ang gidakon sa font sa mga sa kanang mga letters, spacing, sakit ba siya sa mata? Kaya na may test paper nga sakit sa mata, bati pagkahimo. Okay? Ang font nga gigamit. Okay? Font size, font style, ang spacing. So, importante na siya. Ito nang i-consider. So, napod tayo ka ng, ang question nasa kinaubsan sa test paper niya. Ang option nasa sunod nga test paper. So, matagbaw o pakli-pakli ang mga students. So, before we print our test papers, ato asa nang i-check. So, that would also affect the face validity. For example, another one, kanang mga pictures, dapat klaro. Okay, kaya kung dili na klaro imuhang pictures ang i-present diha, ang pag-print ana dira, gamay kayo or hanap kayo, kanang ma-mislead or ma-wrong na nun ang estudyante. So this will ask the question, does the content of the test appear to be suitable for its aims? Another type of validity is criterion validity. So criterion validity means that the test item is judged against a specific criterion. It evaluates how accurately a test measures the outcome it was designed to measure. So if you want to measure the IQ of the students, you can use IQ test. If you want to measure personality of the students, you can have personality test. If you want to check the students' attitude, so you can have attitudinaire. Okay? So dapat na siya ni-fit siya sa imuhang criteria nga giset. So do the results accurately measure the outcome they are designed to measure? So for example, a teacher wants to know whether a college entrance exam is able to predict future academic performance. So kaning first semester GPA, so for example, in grade point average, can serve as the criterion variable. Okay, so that will be your criteria, your standard, okay, to predict the future performance of the student. So that is criterion validity, na kay giset na criteria. Concurrent validity. So concurrent validity shows the extent of the agreement between two measures or assessments taken at the same time. So that means na kay duha ka test paper, concurrent sila, meaning na sila pari-pariha sila og mga content sa test. Okay? So example, a student takes a performance test during the interview process. So for example, mag-apply mo og kanang teaching job. And in applying the teaching job, dapat imuhang performance sa interview mo coincide sa imuhang teaching demonstration. Okay? So that would mean kung mo coincide, kung taas imuhang score sa interview, dapat taas pod ang score sa teaching demo. That's what we meant by concurrent validity. Same thing with will say kanang kung maayo ka sa nindot imong performance sa paper pencil test, dapat nindot pud imong performance sa kanang mga demonstration. Okay? So, another thing, kung mayo imong performance sa lecture, dapat mayo sad imuhang performance sa laboratory. So, that's what we meant by concurrent validity. Another example, kanang mga kanang mag-judge. Okay? Concurrent validity na siya if pari-pariha o score ang mga judge. Okay? So there are 3 judges, for example, nag-rate sa usa ka let's say ang singing competition. Nya kung pari-pariha ang ilang answer, then that means that the validity is concurrent. Predictive validity, from the word predict. Okay, predictive validity is concerned with the extent to which test performance is accurate in predicting some future performance. So example, a teacher wants to know whether the pre-board exam is able to predict future BLEP performance. So, abot ninyo sa 4th year, you will take a pre-board exam. Okay? It will serve as your initial experience before taking the LET. So, ang LET sa una, by the way, ang licensure examination, ang LET is now called BLEP. Ang something BLEP, Board Licensure Examination for Professional Teachers. So, una, mag-take sa kag mga mock test, mga exercise test, labi na kung mag-take kag review, naman dyan ay pre-board exam. Katong pre-board exam, it will predict your performance in BLEP. So, that means, kanang if maka-predict, if imuhang performance sa pre-board exam is almost the same sa imuhang actual performance sa BLEP, then that means na ang kanang test has high predictive validity. Maka-predict siya sa imuhang performance. Discriminant validity. Discriminant validity shows you that two tests are not supposed to be related, in fact unrelated. So that means ang test DI, dili pud siya ingon na pariha gyud, dapat lahi. Okay, dapat ang midterm diri pariha sa prelim. Okay? So lahi ang gi-measure sa prelim, lahi ang content sa prelim, dapat lahi pud ang content sa midterm. So kung totally lahi siya, then that would have high discriminant validity. So the scores of two tests measuring science and math theoretically should not be correlated. For example, it would have high discriminant validity if dili sila same og result. In other words, individuals scoring high in science are not expected to score high in math. For example lang, If that proves true, these two tests would have high discriminant validity. Okay. Excuse me. So unlike with the concurrent validity nga dapat same ilahang performance, sa discriminant validity dapat lahi ilahang performance. Or lahi ang test paper. Next is construct validity. From the word construct, how you construct your test. So construct validity is about how well test measures the concept it was designed to evaluate. So assessing construct validity is especially important when you are researching something that can't be measured, observed directly. So for example, intelligence. Okay, so intelligence is something that we cannot observe directly at kanang iyahang outward appearance. You need to measure intelligence in a way na ma-measure dyan mo siya. So you will need to construct your test that will surely measure the intelligence of the students. You will also need to construct the test that will focus only on self-confidence or happiness, motivation, attitude, personality. So magdepende siya sa imuhang gustong i-assess. And since these attributes are characteristics like intelligence, self-confidence, happiness, attitude, cannot be directly observed, you need multiple assessments, okay, to make your result valid, to make your instrument valid. It will simply answer the question, does the test measure the concept that it's intended to measure? So for example, if you want to test the intelligence of the students, you will give that student intelligence test, dili itong personality test. So there are factors that will affect the validity itself. So factors in the test itself. So na mga factors nga maka-affect sa validity. So una, anita sa test. So sa test, ang paghimo sa test di ay ang pag-construct sa test dapat ato ang atong i-assure na nindot siya pagkahimo. Yeah, we need to make sure that we can observe these factors. First, na factor na maka-affect sa validity is unclear direction. So you need to make sure that you stated clear directions. Directions or instructions are very important because that will guide the students what to do. So for example, if you want ipa-shade ba sa mga estudyante, ipa-encircle ba, ipa-underline, or ipa-write ba before the item, ipasuwat ba sa blank, or mag-adto ba sila mag-answer sa answer sheet. So your directions or instructions should be clear. Because if you have unclear directions, you might misguide the students. Masayot na nun. So for example, na mga student na nag-encircle, niya, ang imong instruction di ay kay underline. Okay, kasuway mo na, hindi ma-zero, estudyante. Okay, so wala na noon mo na measure iyahang performance. Tungod lang kay imuhang directions are unclear. That's why it is also important that you will orient the students sa mga directions. Labi na ka na may mga corrections. Ambiguity or unclear areas na may mga hanap or na mga misspelled na words or na grammatical errors. So, dapat imuhasad ng i-establish It should be free from errors and it should be clear. You should avoid ambiguity or dili maklaro. Number 3, reading vocabulary and sentence structures which are too difficult. So this means that you will not use mga lisod na mga terms, mga unfamiliar words. Okay? So i-avoid na mo. So you need to use mga words that is familiar sa mga students. Yan isa nimo ang pagka-state sa nimo dapat simple, precise, concise. Okay? Fourth, inappropriate level of difficulty of the test items. So there might be test items that would be very too hard or too difficult. Yang complexity. So ako nang i-avoid labi na if wala na nimo na-discuss. Okay? Or too easy. Kasi too easy ng mga questions, hindi sana na to i-appeal. Hindi na pwede ang too easy o too difficult. Dapat sakto-sakto lang. Poorly constructed test items ka nang dinalian nga nimo. Okay? Yeah. Let's say, for example, what is the capital city of Philippines? You would say Tokyo, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore. You would say Manila. So, klaro kayo na ang answer kay Manila. Kaya Manila nasa Philippines. So, dili na siya. Hindi dapat yung options should be, you would say, Cebu, Davao, Quezon City, Manila. Okay, para ako man ang purpose sa na is to make sure na kayo nagdadato ang mga students. Ako may buglibugo na ito mga estudyante, ma-identify na ito sa lista nila mo. In such a way, libog sa mga good siya nga good na pagkalibog, pwede kayo libog na ka na unclear. At dapat dili obvious na answer. Okay, so for example, the question of is the capital city of the Philippines, yeah. Options, gusto of the word, Kuala Lumpur, and Manila. Then obviously, the answer is Manila. Manila sa mga Philippines. Dapat, kung mga options is using Quezon City, Cebu, Manila. Okay, para ito sila na sa group sa Philippines. Sa test. Iwasan siya yung nga, chapter 1 to 10, chapter 1, 11 to 20, chapter 2, 21 to 30, chapter 3. So, dili siya na dapat ako ang jumbled ang paghimo sa test. Number 9, identifiable pattern of answer. So, di pwede nga. Na yung pattern, so for example, multiple choice, A, B, B, C, C, D, D. So, na yung pattern. So, ang buhaton ng mga estudyante, kung ma-identify niya na yung pattern, nawan, ang bili na magbasa sa question. Follow na lang na siya sa pattern. Example, ipa-spell out ni mo imong mga apelido. Okay? Ababa. Imong apelido, for example, Ababa. So, A, number 1, A, number 2, B, number 3, A, niya. Paano sad? another is, so dili dapat na pattern ang answer. Wrong na siya. So ato nang usbon. Napoy factors affecting the content and the teaching procedure. Okay. In achievement testing, the functioning content of test items cannot be determined by examining the form of content of the test. The teacher has to teach fully how to solve a particular problem before including it in the test. So this means nga you need to make sure that kung say na sa test, sa discussion, and the experience ng mga estudyante mo po yung gawa sa test. Factors affecting validity in test administration and scoring. So, mo po ni siya ang mga maka-affect sa validity. Insufficient time to complete the test. So, time is an element in test. Okay? All tests are considered time-pressured. Time-pressured na siya actually. So, sa ato prelim, that is only 1.5 hours. Okay? I-test ang estudyante in that specific time pag yun. Para may bawaan dyan ni mo, kinsa dyan naka-master. Okay? Yan naman dyan uban nga mag-extend para mahuman. So, usa na siya nga factor nga dapat na itong i-avoid. Para makita man dyan ni nato nga unsa dyan ka-master ang student sa pag-answer sa test. So again, all tests are time pressured. Nana na siya nakaalat nga time. So time pressured siya in such a way nga dili sad siya nga tight kaayo, di pud siya taas kaayo nga time, di pud siya gamay kaayo nga time. Enough ra gyud siya. Mao na siya nga ansiran sa jud sa teacher daan ang test before niya ihatag sa mga estudyante. Number 2, unfair help to students. That's why teachers, mga proctors, dapat dili mo hatag og clue sa mga students. You would say nga, kanang, ma'am, kanang, pwede mga yung clue, unsaon pag-answer, ani? Pwede mga yung formula, dili na siya. Pwede, kay nga naman, ang point sa ato ang test is that kanang, ato ang i-measure, unsa jud kutob ang students, unless kung mangayo og unsay klaro about sa instruction, iklaro kung wa kasabot sa instruction or nay mga unsaon pag-answer kana, pwede na siya apilon. Cheating during examination, so that would affect the validity of the test because you are not truly measuring the capability of the student. So honest works are important. This is to help also the teacher and the students unsay true performance sa students. So, kung mag-cheat ang estudyante, dagko ang mga score, magtuo na ang teacher nga unsa man nga wala na siya i-improve. Okay? Nya ipadayunon na niya, so dili na maayo. 4. Unreliable scoring of essay answers might lead to lower the validity. So that is why nga ang essay, okay, butang yun na nato dito sa luyong part sa to ang test or answer sheet or maghatag ka og separate bond paper. Ato nang i-blind. Okay, meaning dapat when you check the essay of the students, dapat di gyud ka mo-tan-aw sa pangalan. Okay, basin unyag kuan ka ma-influence na og bias. Okay, so for example, mo inibasa nimo nga sa pangan, pangan pa lang daan, bright na. Pangan pa lang daan, way sudsud. So that's why dili nimo siya tan-awon ang pangalan sa estudyante whenever you check essay items. Blind yun na siya. 5. Failure to follow directions and instruction and time limits. Okay, so nang dili mo follow instruction, nang mag-underline instead mag-circle. Okay, mag-circle instead mag-shade. Mag-overtime. kana siya dili na siya i-avoid na nato. Unauthorized help to students. Okay, so kanang tabangan nimo ang estudyante, so that is wrong. Mo na siya, this is the reason why nga kung mag-test gani, lahi ang mag-administer, lahi ang mag-proctor. Okay, para dili maka-influence ang teacher sa mga students. Errors in scoring. So another one, unauthorized help to students. Kaning for example, sa board exam, sa teachers, kami mga college teachers, bawal mi mo proctor sa PRC. Okay? Kay tungod kay mahibaw-an unya namo ang mga question, unya itudlo na namo sa mga estudyante, then that would be bias or manudlo nami sa mga takers. Muna ang ilahang pagkuhaon ng mga proctor sa mga PRC kaning naa sa mga elementary teachers or high school teachers, tungod kay wala man sila naghandle og college students. Errors in scoring. Okay, errors in scoring. For example, nasayop kag points, instead nga 5 points imong ihatag na 2 points ra. Okay? Or instead nga 2 points na 5 points. Or ang pag-count sa score. Okay? Sayo pod, instead nga dako yung score ni gamay, or instead na gamay ni dako ang score. So that would also affect the validity. Next is physical and psychological conditions during testing time may affect the validity. That's why you need to make sure that when your students take the test, they should be in good condition. So if they are not in good condition, like bihilantan, so ayaw na siya patika. Okay? Kanang diarrhea, ayaw na siya patika. You can give an exemption sa kana nga student mag-set kag lain nga schedule. Number 5. Reliability. Also, I'd like to point out that cheating during examination sa number 3, that's why we avoid kaning online nga exam. Okay, as much as possible. Kay kung online man good, namang wait, di gyud tawa ta kay baon sa mga possible nga mga buhaton sa mga estudyante mo ng face-to-face exam kita. Reliability. So this is the second top most important quality in assessment. So ato sa gi-recall kay taas-taas na bito ato ang na discuss. What is the first kanang principle? Clarity of learning targets or learning outcomes. Second, appropriateness of assessment methods. Third, that is balance. And fourth, that means validity. So, nanata sa fifth. So, reliability. When we say reliability, that is something, a test should be reliable. In Bisaya, it is, a test should be something nga masaligan. Okay, so when we say masaligan, kung saan man ka musalig og tao, musalig ka sa tao if consistent ang iyahang effort, consistent iyang pag-treat nimo. In good times, in bad times, consistent iyahang treatment nimo. Whether naglisod ka or happy mo, happy together or sad together, that means reliable. So same thing with the test. The test should be reliable. It should give consistent results. So assessment should produce consistent results. Bisag asa pa na nimo i-conduct. Bisag kinsa pa na nimo i-conduct. The reliability of an assessment method refers to its consistency. Okay? So assessment should show consistent and stable results. So for example, BEd 2, the performance of BEd 2 should almost be the same with the performance of BTL-Ed 2, BSed English 2, and BSed Science 2. Dapat pari-pariha inyong kanang performance so that we can say that the test is reliable. Dili kay dako kayo difference ba? For example, sa BEd 2 na ay kuan, let's say 49/50 ang average niya sa let's say BSed Math Okay, sa BSED Math students, for example, nahimong 20/50 ang average. So, layo kayong diferensya. So, dili siya reliable. Dapat dul-dul ra inyong performance so that the test would be reliable. So, these are the methods to measure or establish the reliability. We can have test, retake, or retest method. So that means giving the same examination after several minutes or several years. Okay, so imong ibalik ang kana nga test. Split half. So this is used to establish internal consistency using person-hour formula. So yung gamit ng math ang lapita. Example na ng split half, kana ganing set A, set B. So nakasuway mo ana nga test, kanang column A kay set A. Column B, set B na sad, set A, set B, set A, set B. So that is split half method. Parallel form or equivalence test. So the same examination within the day. So same test you will conduct within the day. Test of stability, giving the same examination content but not in the same manner or form after several minutes or several years. So for example, ilahi nimo ang sequence sa mga items. Okay? Measurement of stability and equivalence, giving the same examination content but not in the same manner or form within the day. So for example, same siya content pero ang usa ka test kay multiple choice, ang usa ka test let's say matching type or true or false. Coder-Richardson establishment of reliability using KR21 and KR20 formula. So nanatay mathematical formula to test the reliability of the test. We also have Cronbach alpha, which is the common test for reliability. So the seventh principle to establish high quality assessment is clear communication. So this means assessment results should be communicated to the learners and the people involved. So communication should also establish between the teacher and the learners by way of pre-test and post-test review. So that means kanang mohatag ka o i-communicate nimo ang mga instructions, directions. Also, i-communicate sa nimo ang result sa mga learners and to the parents. Mohatag ka feedback. 8. So this is the 8th principle. Positive consequences. So this means that assessment should have a positive effect. It should motivate students to learn and do more and should give way to improve the teacher's instruction. So dili kanang test nga maka-discourage, maka-trauma. It should give motivation of the students. That's why it is important to also communicate the result. You will need to give feedback and you will encourage the students to do better next time. Number 9, authenticity, meaning the assessment should be authentic. Assessment should touch real-life situations and should emphasize practicality or practicability. So that means imuhang assessment is useful in solving real-life situations. The test should also be applied in real-life situations. Number 10, practicality and efficiency. So this means assessment should save time, money, effort, etc. So for example, what we have in our prelim na atay separate sheet for questionnaire, napud tay separate sheet for answers. Okay, so that means na makasave ta og time and money sa pagprint sa questionnaire. So labi nagdaghan kaayo. So kung wa ta nagamit og answer sheet ato, musik atong time and money, resources kay magsige tag print ug balik sa test paper. It should be resourceful. And an assessment procedure should be practical in the sense that the teacher should be familiar with it. Okay, the teacher should be familiar sa questions nga iyahang butang, does not require too much time, and is in fact implementable. Mahatag nimo dira. A complex assessment procedure tends to be difficult to score and interpret, resulting in a lack of misdiagnosis or too long feedback period, which may render the test inefficient. So, we should not choose or select an assessment that requires much time to score. Okay? Or ang lisod scorean ba or evaluate. 11. Assessment is a continuous process. Same with learning. Learning is a continuous process. So since learning is a continuous process, and so assessment. Because assessment is an integral part of teaching learning process, it should be continuous. Okay, so that means continuous, there is continuous improvement, okay, of the assessment. So di pwede nga kung muna imong test, mauna na siya. Okay, it should be also be improved and refined. Same thing with learning. I-improve na tayong learning, so dapat i-improve sa nato ang assessment. And lastly, we have ethics. So when teachers think about ethics, they need to ask themselves if it is right to assess a specific knowledge or investigate a certain question. So muni usasad sa pinaka-importante. So dita magpataka og himo og questions, labi na sensitive nga question. So here are some situations in which assessment may be called for. Are there some aspects of the teaching learning situation that should not be assessed? Okay, so for example, kanang mga sensitive nga mga questions. Is the test instrument valid and reliable to test the mental, emotional, psychological, and physical abilities of the pupil? So ato anang i-check if makaayo ba ni or makadaot sa estudyante. So na may mga students nga naay mga situation dito nga ilahang makuan ba maigo sila niya basin mas madaot na noon sila. So example kanang you would ask your students to climb a tree as part of the assessment. So you are endangering the student. Okay, so taas siya risk sa physical na aspects sa estudyante. Nya kay maningkamot man jud ang estudyante nga mabuhat na siya. So don't do it. Labi na marisgo ang estudyante. So for example, gymnastic. Okay? If wala nimo na properly discuss ang kana nga topic and kana nga performance, nya tan-aw nimo nga dili jud ka mao ang estudyante, then ayaw na lang yun ayaw ipadayon. Okay? Asking elementary pupils to answer sensitive questions without the consent of their parent. So that is also be avoided. So kung wa ka nananghid sa parents nga mangutana ka aning butanga sa estudyante, then you should avoid it. So there should be ethics. So if wala na siya consent sa parents, labi na minor de edad ang atong mga estudyante, then that is unethical. Another, are there some aspects of the teaching learning situation should not be assessed? You should consider that one. Is the test instrument balik na to. So the most important ethical consideration of all is the fundamental responsibility of the teacher to do all in his power to ensure that participants in an assessment program are protected from physical, mental, emotional, and psychological harm, discomfort, or danger that may arise during or due to the testing procedure. For instance, a teacher who wishes to test a student's physical endurance may ask the students to climb a very steep mountain, thus endangering them physically. So for example, swimming. Okay nya, kanang imuha yung pugso ng estudyante nga mapalanguyon to test their swimming skills, then dili na siya, you should avoid that one. So imo sa first pangutan-on ka mao ba siya molangoy sa kaning nga part, dali lang usa sa kaning mabaw nga part, ayaw mo adtong lawom kaayo nga part. Test results and assessment results are confidential results. Okay? Such should be known only by the student concerned and the teacher. So, ang kanina atong mga score sa mga estudyante, dapat dili ni natong i-announce. Dili ni nato i-post or announce publicly. Kay it might give them discomfort or ma-lower ilahang self-confidence or esteem. Okay, niya mabuli na sila sa ilang mga estudyante, agamayan ni mong score, oy bugo. So, i-avoid na nato nga situation. That is why when we release scores and grades, it should only be released to that particular student or to that particular teacher. So, natay concern ani, for example, nakasuway ko aning nga part, na usa ka parent nga iyang anak is top 1, then in the second grading na top 2. So natinga siya ngano na top 2 man ni siya man, nya mayo man ni siya niya na siya pwede ko mangutana sa mga score sa kanang top 1 nga estudyante, then dili na pwede, wrong na, i-avoid yun na ninyo. You need to say to the parent, ma'am, the results are confidential. Ang imuhang pwedeng matanaw kay ang score sa imuhang anak. Dili ka pwedeng mutanaw sa score sa laing student unless mananghid ta. Okay? So results should be communicated to the students in such a way that other students would not be in possession of information pertaining to any specific members of the class. So dili nimo kataka og hatag ang information sa test result sa bisag kinsa nga tao. Ang makaibaw ra jud dapat ang kanang imuhang estudyante o iyaha sang score. So the third ethical issue in assessment is deception. Should students be deceived? Okay? So these are instances in which it is necessary to conceal the objective of the assessment from the students in order to ensure the fair and partial results. So it is important nga you need to tell the students unsay purpose ani nga test. Diagnostic ba ni siya, formative ba ni siya, summative ba ni siya, okay, and for research ba ni siya. So if for research na siya, dapat imuhang mananghid jud ka sa students. When in this case, the teacher has a special responsibility to determine whether the use of such techniques is justified by the educational value of the assessment. Determine whether alternative procedures are available that does not make use of concealment. Okay, so dapat imuha sang i-consider if imuha ba nang ipadayon imuhang test or dili. Labi na if dili na siya appeal sa imuhang learning outcomes. Ensure that students are provided with sufficient explanation as soon as possible. So if you are conducting a test para kay ma-research, dapat imuha ng mananghid ka sa estudyante or sa imuhang respondents. Finally, the temptation to assist certain individuals during class assessment or testing is ever present. So dili ta mo help sa estudyante or mo assist sa estudyante on how to answer the test on what mohatag og clue, dili na pwede. Anhira ta kutob mo answer ta kutob sa instruction o direction. In this case, it is best if the teacher does not administer the test himself if he believes that such a certain may later at time be considered unethical. So that's why you will ask other person to administer the test para ma-avoid ang bias. So I think that would be all for today's class.